Hare Krishna devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Uh,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So today it is my pleasure to share with you the glories of the Udupi Sri Krishna temple, a very, very beautiful temple with a very charming deity of Krishna in the coastal town of Udupi in the state of Karnataka in Bharat. So Udupi is a very charming, very beautiful town located about 55 kilometers north of the city of Mangalore in Karnataka. It is most well known for its beautiful Sri Krishna temple established by the very great Vaishnava Guru, Vaishnava saint Sri Madhvacharya, who lived from between the years 1238 to 1317. So that is mid 13th to the early 14th century. The town Udupi is named after the moon because the word Udu indicates star and the syllable Pa means leader or chief. So essentially, Udupa means the leader among the stars. So because the moon is considered to be chief among all the nakshatras or the stars, he is called Udupa, and therefore the town itself is called Udupi because uh, the moon deity, the moon god, he is believed to have performed penance here unto Lord Shiva, and as testimony to that penance and prayer performed by uh, Chandra or the moon, there are two very ancient temples for Lord Shiva as well in Udupi. Lord Shiva, we know, is the greatest devotee of Sri Krishna. And these two temples for Lord Shiva in Udupi are called the Ananteshwara temple and the Chandramauleshwara temple. In the Ananteshwara temple, Lord Vishnu and his expansion, Adisesha or Ananta, are said to reside within the Shiva Linga. That's a very rare occurrence. We may not have heard of such a thing in any other temple. And in the Chandramauleshwara temple, Lord Shiva is so named because he has the crescent moon on his head. So Chandra is a name for the moon, and the word Mauli indicates head in Sanskrit. And therefore, Lord Shiva is called Chandramauleshwara. Now, how did the temple come into being? So this goes all the way back to Dwaraka, and how the Lord recreated his childhood for the sake of his mother Devaki, because we know she missed out on all of his childhood because he had to be moved from Mathura to Gokul as soon as he was born. So once in Dwaraka, after Krishna had grown up and uh, the time of Kamsa on the earth had ended, and Krishna was residing in Dwaraka along with Rukmini, Devi Rukmini, and his parents Devaki, Vasudeva, his brother Balram. So at that time, one day, Mother Devaki, she happened to, while talking to Sri Krishna, she happened to lament. She said, "Oh Krishna, I have been so unfortunate. I gave birth to you, but I wasn't able to witness any of your childhood leelas. Uh, I missed your growing up years. I missed all those beautiful moments of your childhood. And if you would be so kind as to bless me with at least a few visions of some of your childhood pastimes." And the Lord, being ever so merciful, he immediately assumed the form of a little child, and he climbed into Mother Devaki's lap. And when she churned butter, Krishna, he playfully broke the pot. He ate great lumps of butter and he even smeared it all over his body. And then he also snatched the churning rod and the churning rope from Mother Devaki's hand. And after pleasing his mother in this manner for some time, he then assumed his original form. And needless to say, Mother Devaki was delighted. She was pleased beyond measure. There were no words to describe the bliss that she felt. And at the same time, Devi Rukmini, the Lord's consort, his wife, she was also witnessing these leelas with great, great pleasure. And she wished to preserve those beautiful memories for posterity, for all devotees in future. So what she did was she had a beautiful deity of Sri Krishna made, and that deity of Krishna held a churning rod and a rope in his right hand. So in a way, Devi Rukmini was preserving that beautiful memory of Krishna playfully breaking the pots of butter and eating the butter, gulping it down and smearing it over himself. And she not only created the deity, but she began to worship the deity regularly. As long as Sri Krishna and Devi Rukmini were on earth, in the physical world, in the material world. And at the end of Sri Krishna's divine leelas on earth, Arjuna, he safely deposited this deity in a very sacred spot, in a very holy spot called Rukmini Vana in Dwaraka. And then centuries passed by, thousands of years passed by, and over a period of time, the deity became covered by soil and clay, or gopi chandana, as it is called, the chandana that Vaishnava devotees use for their daily tilak. And now, many thousand years later, there were some sailors, some merchants in a ship who happened to pass by Dwaraka on the sea, and they needed something to steady the ship. Now, there's something called a ballast. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the word correctly, but it is something that is used to steady the ship, to keep the ship. It's a heavy material that is used to keep the ship steady. So these sailors, they were passing by the coast of Dwaraka, and they happened to come upon this very large, very huge ball of clay. And because it was very heavy, they thought it was ideal for them to stabilize their ship. And so they picked it up and placed it in their ship, and they moved on. And now they were going southwards. So from Dwaraka, which is on the west coast of Bharat, they began moving southwards, and eventually they reached the coastline where Udupi is today. And just as they were reaching the coast of Udupi, there was a storm, a very violent storm, that blew the ship off course. The ship began to sway back and forth. And then, being blown away, it flew towards the shore, and it got stuck in the sand. It couldn't move any further. And on that very day, this was the time when Sri Madhvacharya was present on earth. So on that very day, Madhvacharya happened to be walking towards the shore, towards the seashore. But he wasn't entirely aware of his surroundings, because he was engrossed in composing a prayer, a very famous prayer, which is known as the Dwadasha Stotra. The word Dwadasha indicates the number 12 in Sanskrit. So the Dwadasha Stotra is a set of 12 stotras, or 12 sets of prayers in praise of Sri Krishna. And each stotra contains on an average about 8 to 12 verses. It varies. So there are 12 stotras collectively known as the Dwadasha Stotra. So Madhvacharya was engrossed in composing this Dwadasha Stotra, and he was walking on his way towards the seashore. And at that time, he happened to see this ship which was stuck in the sand, and he saw the sailors crying out for help because they couldn't move, and there was nobody around to help. And what Madhvacharya did was he took off his upper garment that saints wear, and he waved his upper garment in their direction. So that was a sign of reassurance to the sailors that yes, there was help available, that they need not worry. And because Madhvacharya was a great saint whose prayers and meditation had given him that divine power, miraculously, the sea which was caught in the storm, the sea which had started to rage, had become very violent because of the storm. The sea calmed down and the ship was able to pull free from the sand where it was stuck. The sailors were so grateful, they were so happy that, as a token of gratitude, the captain of the ship, he bowed down to Madhvacharya and offered him anything that he wished for from the cargo that the ship was carrying, from the goods that the ship was carrying. And Madhvacharya, he chose that very large ball, that very large lump of clay or gopi chandana that was there in the ship. And with the assistance of the disciples, Madhvacharya began his way back. And they were carrying the ball of gopi chandana, while midway, that ball of clay, it broke, it split into two. And when it split, it revealed that beautiful deity of Sri Krishna, which was concealed within the ball of clay. Now, the thing is, all this while, when they did not know that the ball of clay was concealing the deity of Krishna inside, they were able to carry the ball in their hands. They did not feel the weight. But as soon as the deity of Sri Krishna inside was revealed, even with the combined effort of all those disciples, they simply could not carry the deity of Krishna. They had to put the deity down. They weren't able to lift him anymore. And only when Madhvacharya himself embraced the deity, he lifted the deity as you would lift a little child. It was only then that the Lord agreed to move. And the Lord, Madhvacharya was so, he lost himself in that bliss. And he walked back about 4 miles to where the town of Udupi is today. And on the way, he composed the remaining 7 stotras or prayers that make up that collection of 12 stotras called the Dwadasha Stotra. And when they reached Udupi, the Acharya lovingly, very with great affection, he bathed the Lord in a lake which is today known as the Madhava Sarovara. And after bathing the Lord, after performing Abhisheka, he duly installed the deity of the Lord in the Sri Krishna Matha, which is today known as the Udupi Sri Krishna Temple. And Sri Madhvacharya, he laid down very strict standards, very strict rules for worshipping the Lord. And whenever he was in Udupi, he used to travel a lot. But whenever he was in Udupi, he made sure that he personally performed all the daily worship, all the daily pujas for the Lord. And that is how the temple of Udupi came into being. Anything to ask? Any questions?
Very, very interesting. Yeah, we've been through these pastimes a few times, but very interesting to hear a little bit more detail. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, Prabhuji. And it's a very beautiful deity. It's very rare. The most common forms of Krishna that we see in temples are he's either playing the flute, or he is present along with Radharani, or he is present in his 4-armed form as Vishnu, or maybe crawling as a child. But this form of Krishna is very rare. He's holding the churning rod and the rope in his right hand. So that's a very, very, very rare pose in which to see the Lord.
And did you mention the source of the deity? That
Prabhuji, that was the deity which Devi Rukmini had
yes,
created.
yeah.
Because she wanted to preserve those memories of the Lord playing as a child. And the Lord, he effectively recreated his childhood so that Mother Devaki could enjoy those leelas, enjoy those pastimes.
Yeah.
Because she had missed out on all of his childhood. So at her request, he recreated his childhood for her. So that's how, yes, that's where the origin of the deity lies. In fact, that way, Dwaraka has association, very close association with so many other Krishna temples spread out all across Bharat. Even Guruvayur, the deity that is worshipped at Guruvayur used to be worshipped by the Lord himself, as well as Devaki and Vasudeva. as long as they were present in the material world. And at the end of the Dwapara Yuga, when the world became submerged by pralaya, or by the flood that comes at the end of every yuga, uh, it was his devotee and friend Uddhava who handed over that deity to Devaguru Brihaspati and Vayu Deva. And that is how that deity made its way to Guruvayur. So Dwaraka is very closely associated. Even Udupi now, as we saw. So it's all connected. It's all a big, big network.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
So I would now like to talk about another very great devotee of the Lord called Kanakadasa. But before I move to his connection with the Udupi temple, I would like to go a bit through his background, how he came to be such a great devotee. So now in Karnataka, there is a village called Kagineli. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right because it's the first time I've come across the name of the village. But this is the village where this devotee, Kanakadasa, was born. So in this village, there lived a couple. Their names were Vire Gowda, the husband, and Bachama was the wife. And they were very great devotees of Lord Vishnu. So they once went on a pilgrimage to Tirupati, where they prayed to Lord Venkateshwara, who is none other than Lord Vishnu himself. And by the grace of the Lord there, a son was born to them. And they named the son Timma. And as a child, Timma used to help his father with small tasks around the house, like watering the plants and the crops. So on one such day, when they were watering the crops, Timma, who was only a little child, he very innocently remarked that, Father, it's because we give water to these plants that they are able to survive, aren't they? So that means they survive only because of us. And the father said, no, that's not right. And I'll prove it to you. Why? So he took Timma to the top of a nearby hill, and there he pointed out all the trees in the surrounding forest. And he said, who do you think waters all these plants and trees? Who do you think takes care of all of these trees? We don't do it, but still they survive. And that is because it is the Lord, the all-powerful Lord, who protects all living beings. And those words, at that very tender age, those words of his father had made a very great impact on the little boy's mind. And that reinforced Timma's belief that God is the protector of all, and come what may, with God's grace and blessings, anything can be overcome. And that came in, that belief, that strength, that faith came in very useful to Timma, because he lost both his parents at a very young age. But with the courage and the strength that his father's words had given him, with the faith that he had in God, he grew up to be a strong man. He grew up to be a very fearless leader. And one day, when he was digging in the backyard of his house, he came upon something very hard. And then when he began to dig further, he saw a trunk, a box. And when he opened that box, he found it was full of gold. And the neighbors, who were all very curious, they came running, and they said, oh my God, there's so much gold. There is so much kanaka. Now, kanaka is the Sanskrit word for gold. And they told Timma, it is because you have discovered all this treasure, because you have discovered all this gold, which is also called kanaka in Sanskrit, we shall also call you by the name Kanaka from this day onwards. So from that day onwards, he began to be known as Kanaka. But because he was such a good man, because he was not selfish, because he was not greedy, Kanaka, he used the gold to build a temple for the Lord in the village where he was born. And the temple had almost neared completion when one day he was suddenly called upon to fight against an army of invaders from a nearby village. So there was a group of people who had come to attack the village where Kanaka lived. And the villagers, they all rushed because they saw him as a leader. They saw him as their chief, and they came to Kanaka for help. So Kanaka, he fought very courageously, but unfortunately he was very badly wounded towards the end of the battle. And there was no one around to help him or attend to his injuries. And in that moment of distress, he called out to the Lord, "Oh Keshava, oh Vishnu, please, please help me. I have no one else to care for me." And in response to his cries for help, the very merciful Lord, he appeared before Kanaka. And miraculously, all of Kanaka's wounds healed. They vanished without trace. No one would even guess that Kanaka had been injured. And from that point onwards, Kanaka decided to dedicate his entire life to the service of the Lord. And one day he set out in search of a guru, a teacher who could guide him properly. And on the advice of a Brahmana, Kanaka sought out a very great saint, Sri Vyasatirtha, and he approached the saint and requested him to give him Diksha, to teach him a mantra and accept him as his disciple. Now, Vyasatirtha did not immediately accept him as a disciple, but he wished to test Kanaka. He wished to see the intensity, the depth of the devotion and faith that Kanaka had. So what he did was, he said, "You are just a shepherd. What could you possibly know? What knowledge could you possibly have? Except perhaps repeat nonsensical words like buffalo. You do that, just keep repeating the word buffalo continuously. That's the mantra that I give you." And Kanaka, he was so innocent, he did not question the Guru's words. He immediately sat down at that spot, and there was a very large rock next to where he was sitting, and he closed his eyes and he began to meditate, continuously repeating the word buffalo, buffalo, buffalo. He kept repeating that. And naturally, the people around, the villagers, they began to mock him. "Look at this man. He's just repeating the word buffalo. He thinks it's a mantra. And he thinks he's meditating. He thinks he's saying prayers. I have never seen such a man as foolish as this one." And they all mocked him and laughed him, but Kanaka paid no attention. And because Kanaka's faith was so great, even though apparently he seemed to be saying a word that had no meaning, that wasn't really a mantra, because he kept repeating that word buffalo with so much faith, right in front of the eyes of all the people standing there and watching him, a buffalo appeared. And they were also scared. "Oh my God, this person's faith has come true. A buffalo has really appeared." And they were so scared that they all ran around. They did not wait around anymore. And Kanaka then approached Vyasatirtha and said, "Look, you asked me to repeat the word buffalo. I did. And the buffalo has appeared. What would you like this buffalo to do for you?" So Vyasatirtha said, "Do you see this very large rock over here? This has been here for so many days. We have not been able to destroy it, or we have not been able to move it, because we have been trying to construct a tank over here, and this rock is hindering our work. We cannot proceed with the construction because it's blocking us. It's blocking our path. Can you ask this buffalo to remove this rock?" So Kanakadasa requested the buffalo, "Could you please help us? Could you please move this rock?" So the buffalo struck the rock with great force with its horns, and the rock disappeared, and the people were astonished. Right before their eyes was proof that Kanaka's prayer had worked. And this was one occasion. On yet another occasion, when Kanaka was preparing food in his hut, there was a stray dog that entered the hut, and the dog picked up a roti that Kanaka had prepared. Now, Kanaka was not aware that the dog had come in, but then he sensed some movement, and then when he turned around, the sudden movement scared the dog away. So the dog, it just dropped the roti and it ran out of the house. Now, Kanaka began to pursue the dog. He ran behind the dog, waving the roti in his hand. He was like, please stop, come back, please accept this roti. Why did you leave it behind?" And the villagers, they were like, "What is this person doing? Why is he running behind the dog? And why is he talking to the dog like that?" And when they questioned him, Kanaka said, "God came to my house but he left without accepting a roti. That's why I was requesting him to come back and accept the food. Now the villagers began mocking him. Look, he's referring to the dog as God. And he's disappointed that the dog did not eat the roti. But Vyasatirtha, who was watching all of this, he realized that Kanaka's faith was true. He realized that Kanaka saw God in each and every living being. He did not differentiate. And so that was the beginning of the transformation of Kanaka into a true devotee, a true disciple. And he became a disciple of Vyasatirtha, and at one point of time, he began to be known as Kanaka Dasa. Dasa meaning servant or devotee. And there was yet another occasion where, very interesting, I haven't listed it on the slide because I did not have enough time to put it together, but I'll relate it anyway. So there was an occasion when Vyasatirtha, he decided to test all his disciples. So what he did was he gave each of his disciples a banana, and then he said, I want each of you, to take this banana to a place where you think no one can watch you, where you think you will be unseen by anybody, and I want you to eat the banana in such a place. So all the disciples, they began running in directions. One went and hid amongst some trees, and they all ran to different places where they thought they wouldn't be seen by anybody, and they all ate their bananas. It was only Kanakadasa who came back with the banana without eating it. And when Vyasatirtha asked him, why haven't you eaten this banana? Why do you still have it in your hand? They did not understand the conditions that I had put forward. So Kanakadasa very respectfully, he said, yes, master, I did understand what you said, but God is present everywhere. How can I be sure that there is never a place where God will not watch me eating the banana? So there is literally no place in this world where I can hide without being seen. I'm sure to be seen by God wherever I go. So that was what differentiated Kanakadasa from ordinary people, from ordinary devotees or disciples. So this is a background of Kanakadasa, how he came into being, how he transformed into such a great devotee of the Lord. But what is his connection to Udupi? So he happened to come to visit the temple of Udupi on one occasion. But those were the days when there was discrimination between the so-called higher classes and lower classes. And because Kanakadasa was born into a shepherd community, he was considered to be belonging to a so-called lower class of people in society. And when he expressed his wish to enter the temple, he was stopped by the temple authorities, the so-called higher class people who ran the temple. And he said, no, you cannot enter the temple. We cannot allow you to come inside and sully spoil the divinity or the purity of the temple. And they very rudely, they denied him entry into the temple. So Kanakadasa, he moved around to the back of the temple and he stood there very silently praying to the Lord. And deep in his heart, he was disappointed that he was not allowed entry into the temple, because he knew God doesn't discriminate between his devotees. Why am I not being allowed into this temple? And it was at that point that Vyasatirtha was worshipping Krishna inside the temple at that point, and he was witness to what happened. At the exact moment that Kanakadasa was expressing his wishes to the Lord, he's expressing his thoughts to the Lord, standing at the back of the temple, the deity who had been facing Vyasatirtha while he was performing the puja, with a deafening sound and crack right in front of everyone's eyes, the deity turned around. The deity that was facing east until then the deity turned around facing west so that Kanakadasa could see the Lord, could have darshan of the Lord. The Lord turned himself around because Kanakadasa was not allowed into the temple. The Lord said, okay, if he is not going to be allowed inside, I will turn around to face him. And so the deity turned around. There was a crack in the wall, and through that crack, Kanakadasa was able to have darshan of the Lord. And everyone was witness to that incident, to that episode. And in memory of that episode, even today, there is a gap in the western wall of the temple, and through this gap, if there isn't any crowd in the temple, if the temple is relatively empty, through standing at that window, one can have a very good darshan of the Lord inside the sanctorum. So that window, that spot is called Kanakana Kindi in Karnataka in memory of Kanakadasa. It stands as a memorial to Kanakadasa and his devotion to the Lord. I would like to share a picture of that window. Yes, here it is. So I'll just share my screen so that the devotees can see the picture of that window. I'll just give you. Here I go. Yes, so is my screen visible? Yeah, so these three bars of the window that you see in the wall, this is on the western wall of the temple in Udupi, and it is through this gap that Kanakadasa was able to have darshan of the Lord when the deity turned around. So originally, the deity used to face east. So the main entrance of the temple today is still in the east, but as a very rare occurrence, the deity faces west instead. It faces the other direction. So this is testimony to devotion and how true devotion can work wonders.
Amazing place, and everybody can only have darshan through that same window now.
Yes, this is on the outer wall of the temple. And as regards darshan from inside the temple, yes, even inside the temple, there is a window which has 9 holes in it. So there are 9 squares. And it is said that those 9 squares or holes in the window, they signify the 9 planets or the Navagrahas. The word Kindi means window in Kannada, I believe. And therefore, that window inside the temple through which the devotees have darshan, that window is called Navagraha Kindi because it has 9 holes in it. I have a photograph of that window which I would like to share. I'll share my screen again. So these are some very beautiful. Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so these are some very beautiful photographs of the deity of Krishna dressed in so many different alankara, so many different forms. So this one that you see in the top right corner, you see that window with 9 holes in it. So that is the window inside the temple, the entrance to the Garbhagriha. Devotees cannot see the Lord entirely. It is only through these 9 holes that devotees can have darshan of the Lord. So you can see
Mataji,
that.
can you zoom the picture, please, if you don't mind?
Yes,
if you can do it.
I can, of course. Sorry, I'm not sure how I should move around. Sorry, let me just. Is it okay now? Is it a little better? Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Yes, there it is. So this is the window. It is called the Navagraha Kindi because these 9 holes represent the Navagrahas or the 9 planets. So this is how we can have darshan of Krishna inside the temple. We cannot see him directly face to face as clearly as we do in most temples. So this is yet another unique feature of this temple.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mataji. And here is, so this photo in on the left, this big one, that is a photo of the deity of Krishna dressed as Mahalakshmi. So they do this is a very beautiful thing about this temple. The original deity of Krishna is like this. He is standing with the churning rod in his right hand, and his left hand is just resting on his leg. He isn't actually holding anything in his left hand, but because of these decorations that have been made, these decorations made of brass and gold and silver, they attach these decorations to the main deity of the Lord, and that is how they give him different forms. They decorate him in many different forms throughout the year, especially during festivals such as Navaratri. The decorations are very, very beautiful, very unique. And it's amazing how that deity of Sri Krishna transforms completely. So that only goes to show that the form of the Lord is universal. He is present everywhere. Every form of God that we see is eventually the essence of Krishna himself. So this is
funny. We did a bhajan today, which we just exactly said that very thing.
wow.
So
What a lovely coincidence. So this is the Alankara or the decoration of Sri Krishna as Mahalakshmi. And this here is Sri Krishna in the Ananta Shayana form, or where he's lying down or sitting down on the body of the snake, Ananta or Adisesha. This, I believe, will be very, very interesting to the devotees. This is the Gitopadesha Alankara
wow.
of Sri Krishna. So this is the deity of Krishna doesn't move, of course. He's always standing in the same spot. But these decorations are all added around him so that that scenario can be depicted. So you can see how beautifully they have done it. There is a chariot. There are horses pulling the chariot. There's Krishna pulling the horses, controlling the horses, driving the chariot. There's Arjuna sitting here with his hands folded in prayer. And there is Hanuman on the top, because we know that Hanuman was present on the flag on top of Arjuna's chariot as a promise to Bhima. Hanuman had made a promise to Bhima that he would be present as a guide, as a protector on Arjuna's chariot as long as the war, Mahabharata war went on. So there's Hanuman here on top of the chariot. There's the chariot itself. There's Arjuna. There are horses pulling the chariot. So beautifully decorated. That's the dedication with which the priests decorate the Lord's deity over here. This is the, yes, Prabhuji?
Do we have idea how many priests they have?
As per the tradition that Madhvacharya laid down, so this Sri Krishna, we know the word matha in Sanskrit indicates a monastery. It's an institution of monks or sannyasis or saints. So surrounding the main Udupi Sri Krishna Matha, there are 8 other monasteries around. And the chiefs, the gurus or the acharyas who lead each of these 8 monasteries, they are in direct succession of disciples starting from Sri Madhvacharya himself. And so the policy is such that by rotation, every 2 years, the chief or the acharya of each of these mathas gets a chance to worship the Lord for a period of 2 years. So for 2 years, say the acharya or the chief of the first matha performs the puja. He performs it for a period of 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, the next acharya gets his opportunity, gets his chance. And then by rotation, every 2 years, they go around and the acharyas of each of these 8 monasteries gets a chance to worship the Lord. So they keep rotating. Every 2 years, there's a new priest. There's a new main priest who performs the pujas for the Lord. There are about 13 to 15 pujas or worship that is performed during the course of the day, including everything included, whether it's Archana or Abhisheka or Naivedya, all of those rituals.
Hmm. That's
So
very
this is the Gajalakshmi Alankara for Krishna. So the word Gaja in Sanskrit means elephant. So there are two, I'll zoom in a bit. So there are elephants on both the sides. Sorry, let me zoom out a bit. I've never managed to figure out how to do this on this laptop. Yeah, so this is better. So Gaja or elephants on both the sides and Krishna as Lakshmi in the middle. So this is the Gaja Lakshmi Alankaram. And here the Lord is dressed as Devi Durga, resting on a lion. So he's holding the Trishula as Devi Durga does in her hand, and there is a lion, the vehicle of Goddess Durga. So it's very beautiful. There are so many more other photos. There are many, many actually. I only managed to pick out a few. I think there's one more. Let me just have a look. There are at least a couple more that I had gathered.
I remember having Prashad there.
It's divine. Now that you
Amazing.
mention it, it's
Amazing.
bliss, absolute bliss.
On the banana leaves.
Yes,
Very nice.
yes. Traditionally, yes.
Yeah.
The first time.
So yeah, here is another photograph of a priest who's decorating the deity of the Lord. I'll share my screen again. Can you see this?
Yes.
Mm.
Wow.
So look, it's the deity of Krishna standing. Normally he's seen in a standing posture, but the decoration has been done in such a way that it appears as if the Lord is sitting in
Sitting
that.
down. Yeah.
It appears that he is a baby sitting in that cradle. That's how they have so beautifully decorated the Lord. It's very interesting, very beautiful.
Mm.
And there's one more. Let me just find that as well. It's fine. Let me see. Yes, here it goes.
Is he coming?
I'll share again. So yes, this is a picture of one of the priests performing aarti for the Lord.
And Aarti is behind closed doors?
This appears close, Prabhuji. This photo has been taken from inside the Sanctum Sanctorum. From
You've seen
inside the
Aarti,
We've been there for Aarti, so they do it.
This is
Everyone
from inside.
present.
Yeah, this photograph has been taken from the inside, but devotees will never have this view, such a clear view. All they can see is through those 9 holes in that.
That's right. Yeah, the ghee lamp.
So you've
Yeah.
got an inside man in there, huh?
Now, this must most definitely be an official photograph because devotees are not allowed to.
Yeah.
They cannot go inside the Sanctum Sanctorum, of course. So this is an inside view of the deity and the aarti that the priest is performing. Very, very beautiful.
Interesting.
So, Prabhuji, before we conclude, in line with the name that we saw at the beginning, Krishna ni begale baro. So in Kannada, it means Krishna, please come soon. Don't delay. A very beautiful song. If with your permission, Prabhuji, I would like to just sing a couple of lines.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Let's invoke the Lord's when we sing. So I will just share my screen again. Just a minute. Yes, here we go. So, I'll sing, Prabhuji. Krishna, 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 Begane Varu. Krishna ni begane Varu. Krishna ni begane Varu. Krishna ni begane Varu. 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 Krishna ni begane Varu. ತಾಯಿಗೆ ಬಾಯಿ ಮುಚ್ಚಗವನ್ನೇ ತೋರಿದ ಜಗದೋದ್ಧಾರಕ ನಮ್ಮ ಉಡುಪಿಯ ಶ್ರೀ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ನೀ ಬೇಗನೆ ಬಾರೋ 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 ಕೃಷ್ಣ ನೀ ಬೇಗನೆ ಬಾರೋ ಬಾರೋ. ಹರೇ ಕೃಷ್ಣ. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very, very much. Amazing. Anybody, any questions, any comments?
Any feedback for me? Any suggestions?
I'm lost for words, Mataji. You got such a sweet voice and such a spiritual knowledge they're exposed to us. They're sitting here in UK, you sitting in England, India, and glorifying the Lord. I mean, what more can we need? Thank you so much, so much.
Thank you so much. It's all Krishna's mercy. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Fantastic. Very good effort. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.